Well, welcome to Napa Valley Wine Academy's first ever combined travel panel and student success panel, where we will be combining our travel destination of Bardstown along with our student success panel for when you're studying spirits. My name is Stephen, and with me today we have Peter, who is recently retired from the film and animation industry. He's taken level 1 and 2 spirits from Napa Valley Wine Academy, and he is a passionate bourbon enthusiast. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Underneath Peter, we have Trevor. He works for Maker's Mark, where he runs the education department. He heads up tours, VIP, and trade engagement. He trains ambassadors. Just to name a little bit of what he does, there's a lot to go with that. Trevor, welcome.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
On the other side, below me, we have Sam. He is the executive director of the Bourbon Capital Alliance. So he oversees the Bourbon Capital Academy, which is where they are right now, and the Bardstown Capital Guild, among a lot of other parts which goes into that organisation. Sam, welcome.
Thanks, Stephen. Glad to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, fantastic. Finally, at the very bottom in the middle, we have Liz. She is the lead spirits educator at Napa Valley Wine Academy. She holds the diploma, a level 4 diploma in wines. She has a level 3 spirits, amongst a raft of other credentials. Liz, it's fantastic to have you again. Welcome.
Thrilled to be here as always, Stephen.
Perfect. So just to give you a bit of context, the reason behind this webinar is really because of our new partnership with the Bourbon Capital Academy, who are based in Bardstown. They partner with distilleries like Maker's Mark, Heaven Hill, Jim Beam, and they launched the Capital Bourbon Academy course, which is an in-depth course on bourbon, particularly bourbons that are around the Bardstown area. They are located at the historic Spalding Hall, which is home to the Oscar Getz Museum of Bourbon History. And we'll give you a short tour of their facilities later. And we have partners with them to bring WSET classes in spirits to Bardstown. So it's a great destination to get in and learn. So I suppose kicking things off, Bardstown, what is the significance? Let's start with Peter. Why do you think Bardstown is such a big deal? Why is it so important?
Well, it's certainly the center of the bourbon universe, where it all began, and all Heaven Hill and all those guys crafted all their stuff over the years, from the small barns and the mountain distilleries to the major industry that it is today. So you guys are doing a fantastic job and opportunity here to create your center to be from Bardstown.
Yeah, so it's where so much of the bourbon really comes from then. Trevor, what does it mean to you?
As a recent Bardstown resident, I've worked for Makers for about 6 years now. Originally was based in San Diego, California, and I would come out here, up to 8 times a year. Just fell in love with the town, fell in love with the history, the community. I think that there's a long history, but it's really the people that make Bardstown what it is as the bourbon capital of the world. And I was fortunate to be able to talk about Maker's Mark, all over the U.S. and on the West Coast. But there's only one place where you can truly come and live the brand. And so to be a new Bardstown resident, and then also be at the Maker's Mark distillery full time, it's been a gift. But I really do think it's the people, and it's the generations of the families and the communities that have kept this history and tradition of bourbon going in this town.
Excellent. Sam, the significance of Bardstown, what does that mean to you?
Well, in a nutshell, Trevor covered it. We are the bourbon capital of the world, and we trademarked that a couple of decades ago, and we live up to that through the sheer breadth of our distillery presence here in and around Bardstown, Nelson County, certainly extending out to Makers, and then James B. Beam on the other side, and then in Bardstown proper and Nelson County proper, you have 9 additional distilleries. So when you talk about volume and bourbon history, there is no other place in America that encompasses that as much as Bardstown. And it's such a unique place in that the dichotomy, it is a small town. We are ostensibly a town of about 14,000 people in Bardstown, about 45,000 in the county, but we are surrounded and engulfed by all of these legendary and massive distilleries. Bardstown was indeed built on bourbon.
Yeah, so it is a big deal, and not just for, I suppose, bourbon, but just for spirits in the US. Like it's really the heart of where it's at. So if we check out where it is on a map, it's pretty much right in the middle of Kentucky there. So you said 14,000 people. There's probably no direct flights into Bardstown. So how does one get there? What's the best way of getting there? Liz, actually, you've been there a few times.
Personally, so I'm coming in from Cleveland, Ohio, and I drove in, and it's an easy drive. It's about 5.5, 6 hours, depending on traffic, honestly, through Columbus and Cincinnati. But it's a pretty easy drive, and the best part about driving into Bardstown, pretty much no matter what direction you take, is you run into, or you don't run into, but you pass one of the rick houses, so you immediately feel like you are in bourbon country.
Excellent. If you were to fly into somewhere, though, if you're not as close as you, Sam, where would you suggest flying into?
Well, we do have a small municipal airport. If you have a small private plane, we'd love to welcome you into Samuels Field right outside downtown Bardstown. But we understand that's not the case for most. So Louisville is certainly a fantastic airport to fly into. And in Louisville, let's give them their kudos. I mean, they've got some great bourbon history of their own. When you fly into Standiford Field in Louisville, you can be in downtown Bardstown in 40 minutes. Lexington Airport as well is about an hour away. And then you look at Nashville, about 2.5 hours, and Cincinnati, a couple hours. So you have 4 major airports within a couple of hours. It's pretty easy to get to central Kentucky.
Okay, and so once you are there, where's the best place to sort of stay?
It's a good question. I think we have a number of amazing hotels that are already here. There's a few more that are on the way. There's also a great bed and breakfast community that's out here. Another families that have been doing it for generations. But I think the hotels are here. If you decide to spend a couple nights in Louisville and then spend a couple nights in Bardstown, I think it's a great way to be able to see different parts of Kentucky and be able to experience that. I've been fortunate to travel a lot. I've been to Champagne in France, and I've been to the town of Tequila in Mexico, and Bardstown 100% has that feeling. Like you said, the rick houses, when you drive in, it's like these giant things that are welcoming you, and you can smell the mash. No matter where you are, you're like, is that the fresh baked donuts over at Adorn's, or is that just amazing mash that's coming through the air? But there's not only visual, but aromatic welcomings, and then also just as kind and welcoming that the people are too. It's a special place, and there's no doubt that you're in bourbon capital of the world as soon as you arrive. Absolutely.
I love the sense of that. The fact is the smell. Like you can probably it's everywhere. Just that smell just wafting through the air, and you probably can't escape it. And it's a delightful aroma. So it's probably very pleasing, and it's making something very happy. So that's awesome. Peter, you went there.
Well,
You've been there. Sorry,
Stephen, our downtown residents, when you wake up in downtown Bardstown, particularly on a misty morning or some overhang, you are going to smell Barton 1792 distilling. And it is to echo Trevor, it is a fantastic smell. To walk on my way to work and smell the sweet mash and yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Peter, you went there. How did you get there? Because you're on the west coast, so it's a bit of either a long drive or it's a big flight.
Well, on my first excursion to Louisville, I went to Frankfort, Louisville, down to Makers, down to Bardstown, kind of touched on the Bourbon Trail, as it were. But it's true what you say about the corn mash smell. It reminded me of, and if anyone's ever had Johnny cakes up in Maine, they're basically pancakes made with cornmeal. So you really just that just permeates when you come near a distillery. It's a really sweet smell.
Yeah, I'm just picturing this aroma in my head, and yeah, it's wonderful. Uh, Trevor and Sam, as locals, I mean, obviously you can go visit distilleries as part of when you're visiting. Is there anything else you'd suggest that people try and do when they do visit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got to visit the Oscar Gantz Bourbon History Museum. It's right underneath where we're sitting. It's an incredible spot. I mean, every single distillery that's in the area does such a good job talking about their history and how it connects back to Bardstown. But to go to a place that's unbranded and really just dives into the rich history of this town, that goes back over 200 years, it's really incredible. And then after you go to the museum, you learn something, you've earned it. So go get yourself something to eat, go get yourself something to drink. Sam is a huge part of creating the Bourbon Capital District. So it means that you can actually go visit some of our bars, enjoy a cocktail in a Bourbon Capital District glass, and then be able to go to another spot. So a few of my personal favorites, Tubbs is doing great cocktails, Liam Ash, Scout and Scholar. If you ever need a bourbon break and you just need a delicious locally brewed beer, go and check out those places. Are great. But Sam, any other suggestions? Or
Yeah, you hit everything there from a downtown perspective, and I would add my old Kentucky home. Certainly, the state park there, Federal Hill, incredible history. The story of Stephen Foster, and then I would also mention certainly our thriving downtown. And Trevor mentioned the Bourbon Capital District. Our downtown is actually one of our largest tourism draws in cahoots with my old Kentucky home and our distilleries. We have so many incredible locally and family-owned retail shops. The Bourbon Capital District now, you can walk around downtown Bardstown with a container of alcohol responsibly and just kind of browse downtown. It's meant to keep our visitors and our residents downtown for longer, and it has succeeded in its goal there. So you've got some slides up there right now. We have a beautiful historic downtown. Bardstown is the second oldest town in Kentucky, and right along with the incorporation of Bardstown in 1780, 1 year before that in 1779 was the establishment of Old Talbot Tavern, which is branded as the oldest bourbon bar in the world, right there on Court Square. So you will definitely want to drop in there, see Jesse James gunshots in the wall, and have a pour of the dozens and dozens of bourbons on the bar there.
So Peter had mentioned it earlier. He sort of brought up the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Trevor, could you sort of speak to what that is and how Bardstown fits in to that?
yeah, for sure. So the Kentucky Bourbon Trail is an amazing thing in partnership with KDA, Kentucky Distillers Association. And so it's a great way to be able to link all these distilleries together. So if you're a guest and you want to come visit Kentucky, being able to go online and kind of map things out, and you'll see that there's a pretty large collection of distilleries in Bardstown that are all along the trail. So we are a piece of the trail. I'm wildly biased in saying the best part of the trail, but we're a wonderful piece of it to be able to come and visit.
And then Sam, like to you, I mean, what do you see as the relevance to the Bourbon Trail? Like, how do you fit into it? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean it's a massive tourism driver, and like Trevor said, I mean the KDA has done a fantastic job building that over a couple of decades at this point, and it draws millions of people annually to Kentucky. The data would tell you, and I hope I don't get this wrong, that on average, those people that visit the trail visit, a few distilleries, certainly at a time. They'll make their way from one to another. So here in Bardstown, I think one of the things that we do a very good job of is referring our visitors to our other local distilleries. I'll mention just one, Heaven Hill. When you leave Heaven Hill's grounds, they'll say, "Oh, why don't you go right down the road here and visit Lux Row? Why don't you go down the road here and visit Bardstown Bourbon Company?" So that's one of the things that we can do here in Bardstown. We are an easy drive from downtown to 4 or 5 of our partner distilleries, and then just a little further out 15, 20 minutes tops, you can get to beam and makers and log still.
Excellent. Awesome.
I
And then,
put my plug in with the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. It was actually 3 or 4 women, was it, who put the idea together. It was Peggy Doe Stevens.
Yeah, Margie Samuels.
Yep. And a woman from Jim Beam. And they all put the idea together and pitched it to the Kentucky Distillers Association and started from there. And it's very much, if you've ever visited Napa Valley, you're going to find very similar experiences. You get a wonderful tour of the distillery, some tastings. Some have restaurants, some don't. Some fun gift shops and interesting bottles that you can purchase. And if you visit makers, even dip your own bottle.
Yeah.
and so it is set up for the tourists then, like it's geared towards that. Yeah.
Exactly.
I would say tourists, and the cool thing that's been, but also like tourists and enthusiasts, and I would say experts too. Right. So I think that there's the beauty of there's really something for everyone. I think all the different distilleries have done a really good job doing different tiered experiences. Right. Have you done a couple different things? I think Preservation is one of the most like underrated distilleries that are going to be like on the trail and in Bardstown. If you want to go taste some super old, amazing liquid, that's one of the few places in Bardstown and just in Kentucky that you can do it. If you want to experience go bottling your own, definitely go visit our friends over at Heaven Hill. If you want to go visit the 1,100 acres of agriculture surrounding Makers, we do farm tours. So I love that all the distilleries are offering different things, especially for if you just just getting into bourbon. If you're an expert.
Yeah. No, that sounds wonderful. So you sort of talked about experts, I suppose. So let's find out a little bit about learning in Bardstown, or learning about whiskey or spirits in general in Bardstown. So, Trevor, you run education. How can people learn when they are in Bardstown?
Yeah, sure. I would highly recommend booking a class at the Bourbon Capital Academy. It's a wonderful organization. We're in a stunning room right now. You can see this back bar. But we host the classes here. And so it's myself and other people from different distilleries. We get to come together and we wrote this amazing education. We're not just learning about one distillery, but multiple distilleries, and you're learning about history and production. So it includes a tasting. So, if you go to one distillery, you're just tasting their products, rightfully so. But if you come to this class, all of a sudden you're tasting different products from different distilleries. They're usually limited releases. So I always recommend being able to come and do that, especially if you are coming as an education piece. Or maybe you should come to Bardstown in October and go to take the WSET. You could take level 1, you could take level 2, and I think there's some pretty cool things that are coming up even next year that, don't want to know if we spoil things here, but
Liz has always got something happening. So, Liz, I know you've got a fancy camera there. Can you give us a very quick? Because you're in the classroom at the moment. Could you show us what it's like? Because you're in a beautiful location.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm swinging the camera around.
Okay, what are we seeing?
And we're going to go over to the side wall where we have lockers for the Bourbon Capital Guild members to store their various whiskeys of choice. We're going to come back over here. The bar area. And then it's going to swing around and show the classroom. And then the distillery lockers are over here on the other wall. And then we have this couch area. Oops, sorry. And then on the far end, the classroom itself and more couch area.
It's a gorgeous location. I can't think of a better place to, want to be in person to taste spirits then. So Liz, while we still have you, could you tell us about the WSET while the camera swings around again?
There we go. So the WSET is the spirits course. Let me hang on. The WSET courses we are offering in partnership with Bourbon Capital Academy here in the Brindiamo Penthouse. Is going to be, right now we are offering the WSET Level 1 and 2 in spirits. I know Peter took them online, but this is going to be in person. We have an October dates already posted, but then we are also planning for January, March, and those should be coming to our calendar soon. The Level 1 class is a one-day course, and you'll be taking that in person. You would take the exam at the end of the course. Level 2 is a 2-day course. You do not have to take level 1 before you take level 2. So if you feel like you're very knowledgeable about spirits already, you can just jump into level 2. I do just want to make the comment that while we are in Bardstown and we do talk about bourbon and whiskey, it is not a bourbon and whiskey only course. We cover all spirits from agave-based spirits to gin to vodka and including whiskey. So just be aware of that.
Excellent. So it's a big organization. It's sort of worldwide. It looks at the world spirits then. But I mean, being there, you obviously get to cover the whiskey, particularly bourbon as well. Now, I know, Peter, you've done level 1 and level 2. Can you tell us about your experience with both levels, really?
Sure. Elizabeth is a fantastic instructor, really laying out all the elementals that you need to know about the basics of any production of all the whiskeys, particularly bourbon and Scotch. She'd even put up my questions about the molecular cellulose of oak barrels. So she's really super knowledgeable about all this and really fun and answers the questions, really comes back great. It's so worth it. I'm on the verge of signing up for level 3 if they have something special going on in Bardstown in the future.
Excellent. And I mean, you came from being a bourbon enthusiast. Did it give you an appreciation, I suppose, for other spirits that maybe you didn't know as much about, or even a greater respect for bourbon?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah. My interest in bourbon was pretty strong. It solidified a lot of the knowledge base that I needed to know, extending it further out. But of course, knowing everything about all other spirits as well is very interesting. Educational stuff happening in Italy, for instance, is not often thought about in terms of vermouth or grappa, but now I seem to know quite a bit about it, and it's really fun. Just on the side, just knowing it, but I want to learn more and get more involved and learn the science actually of a lot of things that are going on experimentally. There's a lot of stuff going on with soft winter wheat, Oloroso barrels, all sorts of barrels throughout the world. Interesting peat malting experiments that I've been reading about. It's just so exciting. Such a big world. It's expanding knowledge-wise.
So it gives you lots of rabbit holes to go diving down into, which I think is fantastic. Trevor, you're obviously an expert on whiskey and bourbon in particular, but you've also done level 1 as well. Can you tell me about your experience?
Yeah, sure. It was a great experience, and in all honesty, I felt that after taking the test, I probably could have jumped right to level 2, but I was really happy that I didn't, because as someone that's in education, how you teach education is just as important as the content. And being able to see how WSET was presented and how that information came across, I thought that actually gave me much more value as an educator. So really appreciated being able to take that level 1 course, and thought it was absolutely worth it for the way that I want to also present information. I think someone being that's in the bourbon industry, you gain so much more respect for our industry and the laws that it's great bourbon when you all of a sudden know about all other spirits as well. And to understand it in that context is fantastic. So I think level 1, for even if you're an educator and you've been in the industry for over 15 years like myself, I still recommend taking that level 1, because just the way the information is presented is fantastic. I'll be taking level 2 in the fall with Liz. Can't wait. Just trying to get extra credit by being in this class right here. So she told me she wouldn't give that to me. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to level 2 and continuing my education journey, even though I've already been in the industry for a while.
Excellent. So
I'd like to add that Elizabeth added animations to the online course, which was super helpful in understanding and putting the process together.
will they be included during the in-person class too, Liz?
The animations, I'm hoping to be able to bring them into the in-person classes, because they are so good in being able to show, especially understanding the process of column distillation is very difficult for a lot of students. So being able to utilize that.
Excellent. So I know level 1 is sort of it's the fundamentals, but we don't go too deeply. We keep it to the important. So how does, for for Trevor going on to do level 2? What's he going to learn about? Like, how does it grow from there?
So level 2 definitely goes a little bit more in depth. So level 1, we only learn about, for example, tequila. Where level 2, you learn about tequila and mezcal and the different regulations around that. There's a little bit more in depth on whiskey, particularly looking at the different international types of whiskey and some of the regulations around those. But definitely, and even taking the production level into the next step, I want to say it's about 40 hours of study time. You do get the book ahead of time and access to our online platform to be able to help prepare. So when you do come into the 2-day class, we can focus on tasting in particular.
Fantastic. And I know you're working at level 3. Can you tell me more about that?
So the doozy of the one is level 3, and as somebody who has done level 3 spirits and used to teach level 3 wines with Napa Valley Wine Academy, I will say it is a big course. It's about 100 hours of learning time is what WSET says to pass. We are planning on bringing that online here in the late fall. And with exams coming soon, and hopefully we can bring it here into Bardstown in 2025 and have more build out from there as we bring in more level 1 and level 2 students through. In level 3, you walk out being able to explain the distillation process and the differences between whether we're talking a single malt scotch with double pot distillation, how a beer still works in Kentucky or in the United States, how traditional column still would work for making grain whiskey in Scotland, to the clay pot distillation of mezcal, to even our Asian distilled products of baijiu, sochu, and soju. So it's a lot of learning, but you're able to walk away explaining all that and a whole lot more, including maturation, and it's a ton of fun.
So it's a very wide net that goes very, very deeply. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. So WSET is a fantastic, way of giving people the fundamentals and bringing them up and really expanding their knowledge. Sam, can you speak to the benefits of spirits education? Because you come across people every day, and you're overseeing education as well. So, what do you see as the benefits?
Well, consumers these days are more and more educated, and they're looking for that additional knowledge anywhere that they can get it. And kind of to echo Trevor's answer a bit ago, I mean, what's unique about the Bourbon Capital Academy is that we're going to teach folks a little bit of distillation, but ultimately they get that deeper knowledge at our partner distilleries, which is where we want them. But we're going to put a bit of the focus on Bardstown and our history here. And what we've built and incorporating the Oscar Yates Museum of Bourbon History downstairs is something super unique and new to the industry. And it's been interesting to see the reception when you talk about education, spirits education. I've not personally done the WSET, and I'm looking very much forward to October 18th, taking the level 1 because I do bourbon every day. I don't know much outside of bourbon, and like Trevor and Liz said, I'm really looking forward to learning about different distillation methods and beer and certainly wine. I'm pretty ignorant about, and I know that there are so many specifics when it comes to wine. So, I would think that Bardstown, WSET courses, the Bourbon Capital Academy, and everything that our distilleries are doing, like Trevor said, they are working in tiers now. So for our newbies, there are experiences at all of our distilleries, tastings, entry-level tastings, and then you can go all the way up at places like Makers and Bardstown Bourbon and Heaven Hill to the very connoisseur level and get that in-depth knowledge as well.
Excellent. Trevor, we spoke sort of about tourists, enthusiasts, and experts. And so how do you think education, spirits education helps them?
I think that there's so much information out there that sometimes is just inaccurate, and so I think it's a great thing to be able to have a trusted organization that you can go to as a source that's like, no, this is what the accurate information is. And I think a lot of people are looking for that as they're on their educational journey. I'm always a huge advocate of traveling. I think that when you go somewhere and you enjoy their beverages and enjoy your food, you're actually taking pieces of those culture and that history that's from there. Like no one's going to Italy and like not having pasta. Like what are you doing, right? And so it's like it's such a great thing to include education into that piece. Just if you're going to go to a foreign country, you want to learn some of the language and the basics, right? If you're going to go to come visit Bardstown, take that time, learn a little bit about our history and also the spirits as a whole. And that's just kind of my philosophy with travel for anyone, whether you're an enthusiast or just a beginner trying to go out to stuff. But I think that food and beverage through anthropology and history of all time is such a part of culture is food and drink.
Excellent. Liz, you've been teaching spirits for quite some time now. So how do you find WSET spirit credentials help in the spirit industry?
Truly, well, and this is where even working with brand ambassadors out in throughout the country where they're not going to be located someplace like Kentucky where they've got the distillery right in your backyard that they can walk them through. Whether they're talking about, let's say, for example, a Canadian whiskey, inevitably they're going to run into somebody, and it's usually almost at every event. So what's the difference between a Canadian whiskey or a single malt scotch and a bourbon? And being able to explain that without, very clearly and being able to answer those types of questions is incredibly helpful for so many people who work in the business. And truly with WSET, there is no other education that covers all the different spirits out there. So this is where WSET is really the leader in this.
And then Peter, how did you feel like the credentials helped you?
Well, it certainly increased my knowledge base, and I certainly get more recognition to people I'm talking to that are involved in the whiskey industry. I went to the Whiskey Fest in Florida after our courses, and I was able to speak with a lot more knowledge, and the people presenting were actually befuddled because they didn't have the knowledge that I did, that Liz imparted upon me, talking about their own whiskeys. So it's interesting. It's really gets a lot of respect. I know a lot of my peers there were very impressed with all the knowledge that I knew in tasting all the different whiskeys at that Whiskey Fest.
Yeah. Superb. I love it when you get to learn something and then it's helpful. I think it'd be always disappointing if you learn something and you can't apply it to something. And so the fact that people can apply it to, what they enjoy in life or just things that they do or their jobs and things, I think that's really useful. So no, that's excellent. I am here with 4 people who really know a lot about whiskey and really enjoy it. So what I'm interested to know, we've sort of talked to there's a lot of history involved, and definitely you should get in and go to Bardstown to check that out. But what's our perspectives on the future of I suppose, the spirits industry, if you want to focus on bourbon in particular? But yeah, what do we see as the future for that, as well as spirit education? I'm going to start with Liz.
So knowing how much investment has been put into especially tourism here in Bardstown and throughout Kentucky, I am really excited to see what's going to happen in the next few years. Not just the investment, but you've had a number of law changes to make tasting rooms more accessible, allowing restaurants, cocktails, all these different things. And it's really exciting to see all these changes in this investment. So I'm very much excited about the tourism angle. And, it's not just I come and visit the Kentucky Bourbon Trail once. You're going to want to come back every year and keep visiting and go visit a different distillery. Or I had a phenomenal experience at Bardstown Bourbon Company for dinner, so I'm going to go back and bring a friend next time I visit type of. But I'm excited about that change.
Excellent. Now, Peter, aside from doing WSET Level 3 for yourself, what do you see as the future of whiskey moving forward, or the spirits industry and spirits education?
It's education itself, well, WSET, of course, is great. I love that they're having a brick and mortar down in Bardstown, of all places. So that's a fantastic place to go. Again, going back to the discussion on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, I think it was genius that the three women created that, because even here in California, Southern California, you say Kentucky Bourbon Trail, you're referring to a cultural icon that's been imprinted into the minds now of the masses. So you found this unique way of making something relatable and making it a part of American heritage, that destination point that people want to go to. And I think that's fantastic. I can't tell you how many people in the entertainment over the years, when I say Kentucky Bourbon Trail, their eyes kind of like glaze over and go, yeah, that's on my list, and it's so kudos to that. I think that's just going to grow and grow, and the more you guys market and do a great publicity job on it, it's going to get more well known and become part of doing the American experience, like going to Mount Rushmore, or somewhere like that, and then going. The Kentucky Bourbon Trail is always on that list. So, but also the experimentation, like I said, is very interesting. There's a lot of great bourbons that you love drinking all the time, but having these new ideas, having this open future of interest and change is really fantastic. There's so much experimentation. The last thing I mentioned before was malting with different items outside of peat. It's so out of the box thinking. We might come up with something fantastic or not, but even so, this is what America is based on, is innovation.
Experimenting. Yeah. That's how new things are created. Trevor, what do you see as the future? Particularly, you've got boots on the ground. So, what do you see as the future?
Yeah, I think just future in education. I think a lot of people have said this before, but if there's any silver lining from COVID, it was that we could move a lot to online learning. And I think that people learn in so many different ways. And I love that there's multiple different options. If you want to come and take an in-person class, and that's the way that you learn the best, fantastic. If you want to be able to do it online, that's lovely. If you want to be able to just hold something in your hand and come visit us at these distilleries. And I love that there's that many different options, right? I think accessibility to education is a super important thing. And knowing that it's available in multiple different ways is fantastic. In terms of the bourbon industry, as a whole, I'm really excited for it. I'm excited for the future, and I think that our legacy and history has been here, and it will continue to be here. So I couldn't be happier to be, in the bourbon capital of the world, and to be part of that journey.
Wonderful. And then Sam, what do you foresee as the future?
Well, I want to expand a bit on the very salient point that Liz brought up about the tourism industry. I live and breathe that every day. My background is tourism, and I grew up in Bardstown. I was here when Heaven Hill really was kind of a trailblazer in starting to build a visitor experience, becoming more than just opening your doors and look, here's a distillery, see you later. So when we look at the evolution of the visitor experience, things are becoming more all-encompassing. You were right to bring up law changes, tasting rooms in Louisville and in downtown Bardstown. We now see, and a place like Log Still, where you can stay on site. They have an amphitheater, they have an event space. That is truly an all-encompassing experience. Makers is so much more than just a distillery tour, the restaurant on site, dip your bottles. It's all about, continuing to build that visitor experience. People want an experience, not a tasting. They want to get their hands dirty. They want to dip a bottle. They want to be a part of the process. So I think you'll see distilleries continue to innovate in that regard.
Excellent. So really, it's all about experiences and doing spirit courses at Bourbon Capital Academy. We've got Liz there running our courses, which is fantastic. So I'd like to thank all of you for attending today. Peter over on the West Coast, and then Sam, Liz, and Trevor at Bourbon Capital Academy, which is going to be just the most amazing place to learn about spirits and bourbon. So, cheers.
Cheers.